They told you letting go means giving up. They said it's weak, cowardly, cold. But that's not the truth. That's control talking.
That's the voice of a system that survives by keeping you emotionally hooked. You were trained to hold on, to stay loyal, even when it hurts, to keep chasing closure, clarity, validation, anything that proves you mattered. But here's the truth. Most of what you're holding on to is holding you back. Not because you're broken, but because you've mistaken attachment for love, obligation for loyalty, pain for purpose. And that confusion, it's costing you peace. You think letting go means losing something, but what if it's actually the beginning of finding yourself? The truth is, most of what you cling to isn't about love. It's about fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of not being enough without that job, that person, that identity. And so you stay. In relationships that drain you. In roles that limit you. In stories that no longer reflect who you are. Because walking away means facing something bigger than pain. Uncertainty. And uncertainty terrifies the part of you that's been taught to seek security over self. But real peace, it doesn't come from knowing what's next. It comes from finally being brave enough to stop pretending you're okay when you're not. You weren't born attached. You were taught to attach. Taught that your worth is tied to relationships. That staying means caring. That leaving means failure. But here's what they never told you. Attachment isn't connection. It's dependency. It's fear wearing the mask of love. Because real love doesn't demand sacrifice of self. It doesn't ask you to shrink, to silence, to settle. The more you cling, the more you disappear. You become who they need you to be, not who you actually are. And you call it compromise. But deep down, it's surrender. Not to love, to fear, to the belief that without them, you're nothing. That without that title, that approval, that old version of yourself, you'll vanish. But what if the opposite is true? What if everything you're searching for only shows up after you let go? Letting go isn't loss. It's a rebellion. A quiet revolution against everything that told you your value depends on what you hold. It's not about cutting people off. It's about cutting the cords, those invisible threads where your peace bleeds out, drop by drop. You let go not because you don't care, but because you finally realized you do. You care about your peace, your energy, your truth. And holding on has become too expensive. People will call you cold, selfish. They'll say you've changed. But that's just their discomfort speaking. Because your detachment forces them to face the part of themselves that's still clinging. Letting go reveals who's actually with you, and who was only attached to your compliance. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's what happens when you finally stop trying to fix what was never yours to heal. When you stop begging people to stay, stop chasing the version of you they liked, and start coming home to yourself. At first, it feels like silence, like absence, like space you don't know how to fill. But if you sit in that silence long enough, something else appears. Stillness. Stillness isn't empty. It's sacred. It's where your real voice lives, the one that's been buried under years of noise, performance, and guilt. And when you hear it, you stop asking for permission. You stop proving your worth. You stop begging for peace, because you realize it was always yours to choose. There's a moment in the detachment process where everything goes quiet. No more explaining. No more fighting to be understood. No more fixing what resists healing. And it's in that quiet that you realize how loud your life used to be. Every decision based on how it would be perceived. every movement weighed by how others might react, every version of yourself edited for acceptability. And now, it's gone. The noise, the pressure, the exhausting dance of making yourself palatable. What's left is unfamiliar, unfiltered, but finally, real. You no longer need to prove that you're enough, because you've stopped arguing with people who benefit from your self-doubt. You've stopped performing for rooms that never saw you clearly in the first place. This is what freedom sounds like. Silence, without panic. You were told that letting go meant losing control. But the truth is, control was the illusion. A mask you wore to feel safe in a world that never was. You can't control how people see you. You can't control who stays. You can't control outcomes dressed up as promises. But you can control this: what you choose to carry. And when you stop carrying everyone's expectations, their judgments, their silence, their noise, you realize you've been dragging a weight that was never yours. Detachment isn't walking away in anger. It's walking away in clarity. Because you finally understand that peace is not something they give. It's something you protect. So you leave the table when respect is no longer being served. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop begging for a love that demands self-erasure. And you reclaim the one thing they can't take back once you remember it's yours: your inner space. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of seeing clearly. When you detach, the illusions fall away. That you needed them to be okay. That you had to earn rest. That love required sacrifice of self. You start seeing people for who they are, not who you hoped they'd become. You stop rewriting the same painful chapters just to give someone a softer ending. And more importantly, you start seeing you, the real you. Not the edited version built for survival. Not the smiling mask trained to keep peace, but the raw, tired, honest soul who's finally allowed to breathe without performing. And that version, that's the one that's been waiting, quietly, patiently, through all the chaos and clinging, just hoping you'd come back to yourself. You don't have to harden to detach. You don't have to stop feeling. Detachment isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming sovereign. You still care. You still love. But now it's on your terms. Not because someone earned it. Not because you're afraid to lose them. But because you choose to give from wholeness, not from need. This is what real freedom looks like. Loving without losing yourself. Giving without expectations. Showing up, not because you're trying to keep someone, but because it aligns with who you are. That's the difference. Attachment says, "Don't leave. I won't survive without you." Detachment says, "You're free to go. I'll still be here." And that shift, it changes everything. Because now, you no longer love to fill a void. You love from overflow. This is the truth no one teaches you. Letting go is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of conscious choice. You're no longer held hostage by the past. No longer tied to roles that drain you. No longer addicted to pain dressed up as purpose. You don't chase anymore. You don't beg. You don't shrink. You observe. You honor what feels aligned. You walk away when it doesn't, with grace, not guilt. And slowly the world changes. Not because it got easier, but because you did. You got honest. You got light. You got free. That's the power of letting go. Not emptiness, not loss, but return to yourself. The version of you that no longer needs to be chosen, because you finally chose you.